We all fall asleep and we start to dream. While we dream, a mechanism in our brain paralyzes us in order to stop us from acting out those dreams. Some people get stuck between the state of being awake and being asleep, and this is called sleep paralysis.
This is Adam from A Model of Control at Stay In Fest, and I'm here with Chris Peterson over in Vancouver.
Hello, folks. Hi, Infest. Love you guys.
And I can see your water bottle behind you.
Yes. We're doing some branding, still on sale for a lovely price of $9.99.
Hey, they get around. They're everywhere, those things.
I'm keeping it. Yeah, that's my trophy.
So how you doing, Chris? It's been a year since we saw you over there, and the world has changed in the time we've been.
Yeah, I miss seeing people at shows horribly, and we're doing good here in Vancouver. All things considered, we're blessed to be under control somewhat, and getting outside is pretty easy to do here right now. Come winter, it's going to be a little more difficult, but we're hanging in there, and we just can't wait to see people again and have this over with. So do what you can, folks, and let's get this thing done.
Yeah, I hear you on that front. It's kind of missing. I think Missing Infest was the one that really hurt when that got announced, and we were just like, oh man, we're really in this for the long haul now.
Yeah, and there was that moment where everyone was trying to save things, postpone things, and it's just it's too hard. The logistics, you can't see into the future. Even next summer, I'm concerned, like, even if things open up, the cost of getting around could be like way different. So we'll see what happens, but we'll get there.
Yeah, indeed, and kind of what we wanted to talk about with you today was about the new release that's coming out on Artifact that from that Jeremy Inkel's solo album that kind of I knew nothing about until it got announced, and it seems that he was busy kind of in the back room with his own work, and I understand it was something that he was like, this was kind of a goal of his that he always wanted to do, was release his own material at some point.
Yes, he always, from the time I met him when he tapped me on the shoulder at a gig way back and introduced himself, he is always working on solo material. His first project was called Binary Holocaust. Have you seen anything of that at all?
I don't think I have.
Okay, because he performed as a solo act as that, and that was always his solo thing. And we'll definitely look at the files on that and see what was put out and what might be still around. But yeah, he was always working on stuff, and he liked the more live PA kind of half a DJ set, half a live performance thing with keyboards and whatnot. So there was Binary Holocaust, and then was Highjacker. Since we started working together, everyone just heard these tracks he did by himself, and over the years, and he became so busy that it always sat there in the background. I've got a lot of things like that every artist does, where it's like you want to do everything, you say yes to every project, and some things get put aside. So, having heard all these, and when we had the bad news of his passing, and I was helping his father Michel clean up the storage lockers and put all the pieces together that were left behind of everything he had and make sense of all that. Michel said, I've heard all this music he does, and it's really good, and I'd like to see that come out. And so, yeah, I couldn't say no to that. And so we did some detective work, and it was a long process. I'll just ramble on with this one because what happened was he had several computers and whatnot here and there and everywhere, and I needed some help from Sasha Keeble, who was working with him on the last frontline assembly material, to track things down, clone the hard drives, and determine what was solo material and what was stuff that was collaborations or maybe got used for frontline assembly. Like, he's got so many songs, so you have to sort all that out. It was a lot of detective work, but also, interestingly enough, I always, when I worked with Jeremy, had a dry board up with all the projects on it and the goals that we need to accomplish, and crossing things off always felt good. And he carried that on all the years, and he had several photos on his laptop of different stages of his dry board even. So we could look at song titles, and it said, here's my solo album up in the corner there with all this other work. And so these different song titles. So it's really detective work, going through, my buddy's hard drives and finding these and going, okay, I think we have an image of the songs that he wanted to be on this album. Let's find them. He was a state they're in, and they were in various states of completion and whatnot. So there we are. And then being able to release it, I'll let you ask the next question, because that's just sort of the chain of events that led up to going, okay, we can do this. It's going to be a bit of work, but we'll dig in there and get it done.
So the first track from it that's come out has kind of surprised me a little bit, because it's kind of almost funky. It's got this kind of real funk groove to it that I was not expecting in the slightest.
Considering the scope of the album, I was interested in that choice too. That would be Jacek there, but yeah, it's a fun track. And interestingly enough, we were doing a vocal treatment for that. Craig Jensen of Living Room Project, my wife Carrie. I don't know if you've heard Living Room Project, but Jeremy, always loved what we were doing with that, and so yeah, he was excited for us to submit some vocal tracks to that, but that never got finished. And what I did find was that he had organized those files in a way that I could actually mix it. Everything was printed out track by track. That one and Hypnotized were both songs where everything was in a folder and bounced out, separate tracks for every sound. So I could actually just mix those without putting any fingerprint on it. I'd heard the tracks a lot. I know what they were supposed to sound like. So yeah. Some were more difficult. You had to go through rough mix versions, and you could tell that he didn't finish that mix, but that was the most finished mix you could get. So we worked with that and I just made it sound continuous as I could, by pre-mastering it before I handed it to Greg. But yeah, that's a funky track. I love that one, and that's him singing on it too, which is really interesting. When you're soloing the vocal tracks and you're hearing his voice, just that coming through. And I've had that experience with Todd Law from 187 and the tracks where we didn't release, trying to finish them. When you're hearing your late friend's voice like that, it's different. It's comforting and haunting both once, And if you look behind me, these are his speakers that he used when he was working on all of that too. So it's I picture him beside me sometimes when I'm mixing and just nodding his head, cranking the volume, and and the boy had groove. He loved his funk, and he loved big bass lines and grooves. Yeah, that's a funky track. I love it.
So let's go back a little bit here, because obviously you've known him for a long time, and so you say he just tapped you on the shoulder at a show. Is that literally how all this came about originally?
Yeah, he his first foray was, I think he was like barely 15 years old when he was promoting a show, and it was going to be Strapping Young Lad was the first show he wanted to promote here in some place in North Canada. Like, he was punching right over his weight class putting that show on, but he always had a love for the metal scene too. Like, he's so diverse, just he loved everything you'd think. and so it was a Zimmer's Hole show that I on the shoulder at, and of course Todd Law from Unit 187 used to play samples with those guys and what. And there's carryover members with Zimmer's Hole from Strapping Young Lad.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy comes up, taps me on the shoulder, hey, introduces himself, like your work, and I'm like, you know what? Funny thing is, across the street, Reese is working on some Conjure One at Warehouse Studios. Let's go drop in on him. And so we, and then we just got talking after that. I just thought the kid had great energy, and then he had his own band called Left Spine Down with Kane DeLay and all the miscreants in that band. and they were a sloppy, energetic mess. But I just thought, these guys have great heart, lots of ambition. They're not going to be stopped. So at the very least, I could help them out and drag them into the home studio and show them some stuff, get their stuff sounding better, and help them become better recording and producing artists. So that was a very early stage, yeah. And it's funny with Jeremy, he never just walked in a room, he exploded into it, right? It's just pieces everywhere. Yeah, it was just it's really fun. I instantly liked him, and then I worked on his own band at Left Spine Down, I guess for maybe almost 5 years, I think, with all their singles and EPs, and then the album before they went and had Dave Ogilvy produce their last one.
Mm-hmm.
And so he didn't get pulled into the Frontline situation until the MSI remix came along, and I was passing on that when I had other things to do. So that was the first time Jeremy and Bill worked on something exclusively together and took that one home. And I would say also Noise Unit Voyeur was when we started introducing Jeremy to the Bill camp, per se, like, so the MSI remix and the Noise Unit was like, yeah, okay, now Bill's seeing this, and he's like, yeah, okay, after the time I spent with LSD, he was like, yeah, I think there is something there with this guy I want to bring in and whatnot. So that's roughly the chain of events in my eyes. It was a long time ago, of course, but yeah, I just went from a crazy guy with these crazy bands and all this ambition, and there's no way he was going to ever be stopped by anyone. So, and then he gets into the Bill machine, and it goes from there. It just went so fast after that. Like I said, he wouldn't say no to very many projects, so that man got busy in a hurry. Yeah.
I remember the first time I heard Left Spine Down. It must have been on like one of the Glitch Mode compilations, because I heard You Can't Stop the Bomb on one of them, and we were just like, whoa, what the hell's this? This is great. And we were just suddenly like, yeah, we need more of this. This is because there was just you're right. There was kind of some kind of like energy about it. That kind of, there was a punk side to that, but there was a hell of industrial side to it as well. And it was a riot of all kinds of stuff going on at once. I mean, I never quite kept up with all the remixes that they later released, but it was, the album was great, and had an energy like no one else at the time.
Yeah, it was funny because the very first thing they put out before I got my hands on them recording wise was a lot of different things. Like they had so many influences, so it didn't really sound like one cohesive thing. And then just looking at them and the energy and attitude, I just thought, you guys, if we take drum and bass and punk rock and we just smash them together and kick it down the alley, that's what I want to go for here. And then Jeremy responded right away with these, break beats, and then the guitars smashing in, and I'm like, yeah, this will work. Yeah, here we go. And the perfect vehicle for their energy, right? And the way he sings, he's very punkish too. So yeah, it was really fun to help them shape that thing and see where it went for them. And boy, did it ever go places. Yeah, I mean, they were touring with Revco, and they mission accomplished for them. They had a blast.
Yeah, and he came out. Does my memory serve me correctly that he was on the Artificial Soldier tour? So he came over with Frontline to Infest back in 2006. I mean, my memory of that show is sketchy at best.
Yeah, that is the case. Yeah, that was when we first started dragging him around with Jared Slingerland on guitar as well from Left Spine Down. Jared later left that band, and so that would be when it started for all of that. It was a U.S. tour, and I think it was the Ill-Fated Digger tour that was Jeremy's first tour with us, though. if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because we didn't see Frontline in the UK for 10 years because they played the shows in like 95 that I missed for reasons best known to time when I was younger. And then the next opportunity we had in the UK was 2006. And the Infest show, everyone went nuts for it because it was like, wow, it's our first chance in a decade to see Frontline. We're there. And then they came on and opened with Vigilante, and we're all like, yeah, this is all going to be fine this evening. This is going to be absolutely cool. And they were so loud. And it was, but we were all like, yeah, this is exactly what we wanted. And I've seen Frontline so many times since, because it's like every time they had this kind of a power live, that no matter who's in the band and how many people are in it, they're kind of, there's a clarity to their sound that few other industrial bands have managed live. And some bands manage it live and not on record. They manage it on both, and I've never been sure how.
Well, quite often the people that are involved in the production in the record are the same people involved in the production on the road. So if you look at the sound desk, you see Greg Reilly, it's going to be a good night. Yeah, or Ken Marshall, or on it goes. Like Bill's always had a very high bar for the kind of people he wants to work with and how things should sound, and it's not cheap to do that. And so the money could have been put elsewhere, but a lot of the time when I was with the band, it was put into the production. I remember back in, what was it, 93, we carried around the video monitor wall with the CRTs and hauling all that crap around with a giant pain in the ass, but the man loves to put on a show, so credit to him. Yeah.
Well, I still have on my shelf. I still have the original VHS of Live Wired,
Except I'm not on it, so just on the shelf, get another one. They're better.
Hey, I don't have a video tape player anymore, so it stays there in the box, right?
Nothing's forgotten anymore. The internet now.
Oh no, isn't it just? So it's like, he never seemed to, but Jeremy never seemed to stop because he was always involved in something. And there seemed to be this kind of well of creativity. I mean, most musicians I know are like that anyway, but he seemed to just be at turbo speed all the time. There's always something he was involved in around the corner.
Because that energy was so magnetic, everyone's pulled into it, and obviously, like with Bill and Frontline, even there's this feeding from that energy, and it's not like a secret, right? It's just, he loved being around that. As much as he exploded into a room, he also lit that room up. So those long days in the studio, the long tours, all of that, you need people like that around you that just love what they're doing so fucking much that it reminds you. You see it through their eyes. Maybe I've been to Prague 5, 6, 7 times, but seeing it with him makes it all new. So yeah. Small wonder the man had so many people wanting to work with him. And he also had, and this was tested again in the Noise Unit song, where me and Craig Huxtable worked on the first track, Illicit Dreams, and then handed the chunks of music ideas to Jeremy, knowing that, I knew back then he had this sense of arrangement that was between a musician and a DJ, because he could do both. So he knew when to drop things, pick them up. And so people recognized that too pretty quickly, that you could just hand him a bunch of stuff to him and it would come back out like, oh, great arrangement, thank you, now it makes sense. So so that made it a quick turnover for that kind of thing for him too. He'd send you something back in a week and you're like, thank you. And again, to the detriment of his own stuff though, right? And here we are now going through really old files and lots of hard drives to find what he was doing for himself. Yeah.
Well, I think that's it's kind of one of those things, isn't it? Because you do see that sometimes, and and I realize that in kind of the writing that I do, that sometimes I have a work in progress file, and there's some stuff that sits on there for years, and I'm like, and I sometimes go back to it going, oh, what shall I? Oh, right. How about I pick up that thing that I left 5 years ago because I never got around to doing it? And I suddenly now see what you guys mean when you're like, oh yeah, I've got these music stems that I never quite finished. I should probably get around to finishing them sometime. But life gets in the way. We're a scene that is not about full time, right?
Yeah, life does get in the way. Like, I'm one of the only people I know of all the people I work with that doesn't have kids. Talk about life getting in the way, right?
Yeah. And I think and it's easy to forget that. And I think it's easy to kind of, for fans to sometimes go, oh, well, why aren't they releasing more stuff? And it's like, because we have other things that isn't just about music. You know, and you know, kind of music is important, but obviously life has to go on. That means seeing your friends. That means, you know, kind of doing what you need to do to survive. And sometimes music has to take a back seat, right?
Sometimes you have to take care of somebody else, or many things can come up. Yeah, and when you're a young guy and you know, you don't care about what you eat or anything else, you can do that. You can put out an album a week, you know. But it's not just that you get old and slow or grumpy or anything like that. It's just like you said, life gets in the way and you reach. People become more and more important to you, as opposed to just being so myopic and like, I got to be the man, rising to the top, you know. And which leads me into something, you know, where it's just like, when you do take on that much, that it becomes a health issue, I think, at some points. And you could see that was getting taxing towards the end. So I'll let you go into a next question then. From that.
So what do you think in terms of, kind of, obviously he died so young, what do you think his legacy is going to be? I mean, is that, do you think that's already something that's already known in terms of the way he did things?
Yeah, I was first to speak after Michelle at his memorial, and you know, I just threw whatever I wrote down out. But I think, yeah, his legacy, he did what he set out to do and much more. So it doesn't feel like, you know, he's way too young, and obviously there's much more to come from him. But at the same time, knowing him so young and what he wanted to do back then, and seeing him do it and then do much more than he even expected or anyone else might have, his legacy is going to carry on. And he did a damn fine job of showing people how you can just realize your dream. He just wanted to be on stage and playing and meeting people. Everything he did was the dream. It wasn't like he needed a record. It wasn't like he needed a yacht. He just loved music and he loved people. And he got to put those things together in a spectacular way and touched a lot of people. So that is his legacy there. And there's also another part of it where, despite, you know, besides us putting this solo material together, there's several collaborations, as we spoke to earlier, how many people wanted to work with him. So I've made sure that files were available to the people that were collaborating with him. And there's a lot of people I know that have this song with Jeremy they were working on that they want to finish. So I would imagine, and I hope, and I'm trying to push people to do this, is, you know, get those songs finished so we can talk about the next wave, because there will be more and more albums coming, or even with this band Left Spine Down, there would be lots of unfinished material or tracks that didn't get completed and whatnot to work with. So I'm just going to be reminding everybody that I can think of that he worked with to keep looking at those tracks and keep putting them out, and let his parents know about that, so that we can channel those into his legacy as well. Because this album obviously is benefiting the food bank in Vancouver. It's a small-scale charity that gets money directly into the hands of the people that are going to be doing something to make a change here, instead of certainly I'd like to see any future collaborations come through those channels, and that we can, you know, either people release it as they release it and then send those, whatever royalties come from that to the foundation. We'll see how it works out. I just know there's a lot out there that'll still be worked on, and I'll be encouraging people to keep up on it. Yeah. Like you said, we're just talking about how tracks get lost in time, but no time like the present, you know.
No, indeed. Right. At that point, I think we'll wrap that up here. But thank you so much for joining us today. And Jeremy Inkel's album Highjacker is out. When is that? November 3rd, I think it is. I think the physical version's out November 3rd.
I've got 6.
November 6th even. My bad. Yeah, November 6th, November 3rd, November 6th. I think digital November 3rd, shipping around November 6th for the vinyl. So, and it's available on frontlineassembly.bandcamp.com.
Fantastic. Hope you all enjoy what you hear, and just remember how much this man loved making music, making people happy, and hope it puts a smile on all your faces in these troubling times.
And I'll no doubt be spinning it sometime soon as well. But thanks for joining us today, Chris, and hopefully we'll see you again at Infest at some point in one musical form or another.
Yeah, I've only done 2 so far, so me and Craig were saying we'll change our band name and we'll show up again.
Hey, we'll sign a petition for you to come back. It'll be great.
Please do. I want to break the rules. Come on.
Anyway,
Awesome.
Well, great to speak to you, and thanks so much for joining us for this.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right, cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.